Okay. Kevin, do you support the surge in Afghanistan as a tactical mission? And isn't that contradictory to drawing down in Iraq?
I think it is contradictory for Senator Obama because he's for the surge after having been against it, having been for it, and then against it in Iraq and in Afghanistan. I think that his approach to both conflicts has been wanting to have it all. He was not in the Senate when the vote on the resolution was conducted. His running mate was, and he voted for it. He voted for the Iraq War, and his running mate spoke out against Obama's own effort to cut off funding for the war. It's one thing to say, well, I was right because I didn't have to take the decision as a senator in 2002, 2003, and now I want to keep changing my position on whether or not we should or should not support the surge. If Obama had had his way, we would have withdrawn from Iraq years ago, and we would have left the country and the region in complete collapse. And John McCain fought for the surge, even against the administration's own guidance, and won that battle, and the surge is working. The surge will work in Afghanistan, but it's not just a tactic. It's part of an overall strategy that he understands. It has to involve also Pakistan. The Al-Qaeda is actually hiding in Pakistan, not in Afghanistan. And the Afghanistan-Pakistan connection, that whole border region is where the problem has to be addressed. And Senator Obama has repeatedly and recently telegraphed to Pakistan that he will reserve the right to go in and bomb Pakistani territory at his own discretion, which is upsetting the entire balance of the very delicate diplomacy we must engage with the Pakistani government, a government that only very recently has come to power under very precarious situation. So these are very important and delicate and complex issues that I feel, and I think many Americans feel, require a president who understands them to their root, who didn't just travel there 3 months ago for the first time.
May I offer a response?
Yeah, this is worth running with, I think.
I think it's a mischaracterization, and it's part of what's unfortunately been happening throughout this campaign, these mischaracterizations of Senator Obama's positions. Senator Obama was not in the Senate at the time, but he gave a very forward-looking speech at the time in 2002 and stated very clearly the reasons why it was a mistake to go into Iraq. So it's not simply saying he wasn't in the Senate to take a vote, but otherwise he was absent from the discussion. He was there, even as a state senator, talking about the fact that it made no sense whatsoever to go into Iraq at that time. This idea of being for it before he was against it, you know, using the rhetoric back from the against the Kerry campaign, is a bit of rhetorical nonsense.
But he was against the surge.
He was against the surge. He was.
Okay.
But
now he's for it.
No,
Afghanistan.
No, because it's games.
One rock at a time.
Because it's games playing. It's rhetorical games playing to say for it before he was against it. Senator Biden voted for it, but has said numerous times, what I voted for was to give the president the authority to use force as a last resort. And he had been assured by the White House that they were going to pursue all means of diplomacy, including at the United Nations, to secure a resolution before such force was used. That didn't happen.
You get the last word.
Okay, well, I think that's also convenient for Senator Biden to try and hedge. I think it's interesting that Hillary Clinton probably was the only one of the Democratic contenders who had any sort of integrity on this issue, because she refused to second-guess the vote that she cast in favor of the resolution as well. The point is, we're beyond that. The next president is going to have to deal with the aftermath, and John McCain was also in favor of using force as a last resort, and also John McCain was one of the greatest critics of how this war was conducted. I share his passion, I share your passion for how disastrously the war in Iraq was conducted, but we can't wind the clock back, and this is not a vote between George Bush and someone else. We have to think of the future, and that's where it comes down to who has the right vision, who has the right experience, and who knows the region and knows the players in the region, and who just landed there 3 months ago for the first time.
Thank you. Let me just follow that up very briefly, if you would. We started talking about Afghanistan. What is the Afghanistan front to you, to both you candidates? Is it a manhunt? In other words, is it over when you catch Osama bin Laden? Or what would victory mean in Afghanistan?
I think it's a good question, what victory means. I've yet to hear any rational explanation come out of the Bush administration as to what victory means. And talking about the shifting sands, it started out as being weapons of mass destruction. Then it started to be about implementing democracy and taking down a dictator. And the sands just kept shifting and shifting over time. The issue about bin Laden is you've got al-Qaeda operating in about 70 different nations around the world. And it isn't, the problem that I have when you talk about war on terrorism is we have this notion in the United States of wars that aren't wars. We talk about, during the Nixon administration, a war on cancer, during the Johnson administration, a war on poverty. Well, some of these things have always been with us and may sadly always be with us forevermore. Wars have ends. They're definable things. They're things where you have a direct enemy that you think that you can defeat. I submit to you that there will probably be, sadly, never be a day in the history of the world where we will wake up one day and say, that's it, no more terrorists. We have always had some form of terrorism and some form of terrorists. So you're going to have to engage on a different level. Getting bin Laden is about, the RAND Foundation issued a report just several months ago saying that fighting terrorism is not a military thing. It is something, it's a police effort. You're talking about criminals, and you should fight them as criminals. Osama bin Laden is a criminal. He should be pursued as a criminal and brought to justice.
Kevin, is it over when bin Laden is caught, if that in fact does happen?
Not by a long shot. This is a war, but it's a very unconventional war, and that has been, I think, explained in great detail by Republicans and Democrats who share this view. Think of the city you live in here, or any of the cities in Brazil. When crime gets out of control, when you're seeing things on TV or in the newspaper, in Global, about the horrendous amount of crime that's just continuing to go more and more, and you begin to wonder whether the leaders, the governor, the mayor, the president really understand how to solve it. You may see them sending in troops, or you may see like big actions with tropa de elite or something like that. But there's always something nagging underneath it all that you know that that's not going to solve the problem. There's got to be something much deeper and more profound that has to take place. I think that John McCain understands that. I think that Senator Obama understands that too. We haven't heard his vision of what the end of this war means. But what, to me, I think what it means, and to a lot of people, is that we have to change people's hearts and minds about why, when you make the decision to be a criminal, say in the case of living here or in any of our cities, when you make the decision to kill someone for the sake of a few dollars, or when you make the decision to blow yourself up in the middle of a crowded market, you're making a real judgment about what your life is worth. And we have to change that factor. I mean, we can fight the military tactics, we can fight the strategy, we can do the public diplomacy, we can stand on the side of what is right and what is good, but we have to win that argument. We have to win the people of the Middle East over. We have to win the people of the developing world over with our ideas. And when I say our ideas, not just America's ideas, but the ideas of all the democracies, all the countries that aspire to live a better life, have their people be free, and have them live in tranquility. We have to win that battle, and that is a war.